We were unexpectedly called upon with a download to do a Facebook Live. And then we had a little bit of a normal 2.25-year-old debacle. So we needed to do mommy and daddy and baby time and put everything on hold, but we are here and we're staying close, and we hope you are with your loved ones and staying close. It's Sunday, March 29th, 2020, and this is Yogi's Guide to the Apocalypse.
Number 4.
Number 4, D.
D.
D is for disclosure. So Kalánidhi and I have been teaching for quite a long time, and we are certainly students, and we certainly don't see ourselves as incredibly special. What we do, though, is pay attention and follow a lot of amazing researchers, scientists, journalists, healers, and we've been following this ascension for quite a long time. As yoga educators, as working with children in various ways, we know that life is a spectrum, and we certainly love working with our adults. And right now, while we are in this pandemic, we are in a position of being called upon to serve. So that's what we're doing. And this Yogi's Guide to the Apocalypse is something we started, at least a year ago probably, and we started making the videos, and then business and life took us away from doing it, and then this situation has brought us back. So if you've been following our live kirtans every night since this started 2 weeks ago, we're doing them on my personal page, which is Jaishree Dow-Spielman, and you're watching this on Jaishree Yoga. We also have a soul culture yoga school certification page. If you've been following us on that or any of our videos, we're also interviewing amazing people. Last night we interviewed Jonathan Glass of the Healing Essence Center, and there will be more. We very much understand that the world right now is really in a state of mass grief, grief for the change. C was for change, and the Yogi's Guide to Apocalypse. We also understand that on that spectrum, there are different levels of consciousness. And what we want to talk about today, and what Kalánidhi really is going to share from our download today, is about that spectrum of being, on the very 3D, this material level, which we're all part of, and understanding this virus, understanding the truth of science and health and what's being disclosed to us around that and what is not. And there's some really important information coming through, but a lot of it's hidden. So we know that there's the consciousness of that. There's also the consciousness of the light workers, the folks who have been knowing this was coming for many, many years, millennia actually, who have been connecting through the vibration of mantra and through the vibration of bhakti and devotion, talking about God, even though we don't have to be talking about religion per se. We're talking about real community and real connection with the divine, which is so personal. And so what this whole thing means on that level, which is actually quite good, although it's incredibly difficult, and everyone's going to experience various levels of a death cycle for it in some ways, emotionally, psychologically. God bless us if it's physically. And then there is this other level right now that I think you're going to end up speaking to, which is the bringing together of those and being in service. And that would be D is for Dharma, our divine duty, really stepping into the call of action, which so many people are doing. We're seeing our students from so many years do it, the graduates from the yoga program, our friends, our amazing circle of healers and divine wisdom keepers and medicine folks that we have. We are so beyond honored just to be a part of it. And the devas are lining up right now to take a place on earth. So ultimately, this is all about the babes, the children that are coming in, the people who are going to rebirth. So I'm handing it over to you, my glorious, incredible husband, musician, Gandharvaka, CEO, teacher, healer, and daddy.
He is for daddy.
D is for daddy.
Snorri boy.
Well, so these two kind of ends of the spectrum, but it's a process, and this is an eternal cycle, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And it's unavoidable that we're all in that birth canal, but also that dance of death, that spiral downward. But also it's the centrifugal pulling apart, or centripetal, I forget which one it is, but
centrifugal? Centripetal?
Well, one of them is I think centrifuge is when it's the thing that separates the blood, and they do blood analysis.
Yes.
So it pulls things apart, but it also, you're right, it's both of them together. It's simultaneously pulling apart, but then it's also bringing things together. And so, I will share a little bit about what my experience just was like when we went through our little 2.25-year-old drone, because I think, because it's so here. Yes, I'm gonna first. I'll state a belief that I'm coming from, and the belief, and I've heard this from a lot of people, and it really rings true with me, and that is that in this time, there's no more lag time, or there's no more buffer zone anymore between the things that you're trying to figure out, and then doing them, and like presenting them correctly in a way that seems like you're together. That doesn't exist anymore. And the faster that you accept that, and the more that you can catch that in the moment, the easier time you're going to have to just go through this simultaneous death spiral process, and also develop your connection to your dharma and your divine duty. Because we are not the controllers, we're not the enjoyers, at least according to the ancient wisdom of the Vedas. We are servants. We're not in charge. It's not going to fall on our heads ultimately, although we each have a role to play. And so that is our responsibility to carry out. But the idea that we have to be perfect, and then we have to have things together, and it's probably so much deeper than I'm even able to describe right now, because our entire way of thinking about things, making meaning individually and collectively, is going through this process as well, falling apart and being birthed right before our eyes, through us, through all of us together. So when we just went through our episode, which Narayani found a bottle of peppermint oil and applied it all over her legs, because that's what you do with beautifully smelling oil. And we were like, and then we kind of jumped into action. I jumped into action the best way that I knew how, but it was total conditioning programming that was taking over. I had the assumption that I needed to put her on lockdown, which is so funny because it's a direct mirror of what's happening with Corona right now. I had to put her on lockdown, quarantine her hands away from her body, carry her like an iron cross to the bathtub, and then we were trying to clean her. And I was so...
He's not a woman, so he forgot that the most important thing was that the oil not get to certain parts of her body.
We don't have to go into all the specifics, but it's what I really want to own is that I was possessed by a program that completely took over. And I can, so that's like the stress response in a negative way. Like I was completely rigid. Everything was locked up. There was no fluidity. It was just total panic mode. And so it was a real gift and a lesson for me to feel that. And because that's what's happening in the planet right now. There's a lot of people that are in total fear mode, locking up, trying to figure out how to deal with a very real, peppermint on a 2.5-year-old, she can get in her eyes, in all these places. And
it's a crisis.
It's a crisis. Not fatal, but it would, be not a fun time. So my daddy genes got kicked in. So I think all of our collective, protector genes are getting kicked in right now. Real. Like, how do we actually do this? And it triggers that dharma piece, because all of us have a dharma to look after each other, to be kind, compassionate.
That's who we are. It's what makes us human.
Yeah, exactly. So that's being activated. But we have all this old programming that is tied in with that. So the real question is, what needs to die? What are we denying? And what is the new
way of health, but also how is that integrated with the rest of our lives? So one thing I'll share, and I don't have any answers here. I've done a lot of,
and we are not
amateur
medical doctors, so we're not giving medical advice.
Of course not. And I'm, amateur researcher. I've, looked into a lot of things.
Not really that amateur researcher.
What really struck with me today after, listening to some more things, just about what our approach is now, what lots of people are coming out and they're really sharing and disclosing, they're true, not just, knowledge, because disclosure has been around for a long time, whether or not it's about extraterrestrial life, whether it's about ancient technology, whether it's about
geometric,
mathematical
science,
underlying
Ayurveda.
science, behind, the scenes that can be leveraged towards great
energy,
great
energy
outcomes in terms of return on investment of our energy and attention. Now it's personal. People are really showing up and speaking from the heart and from their heads. And so these, the mind and the heart and everything is being unified, and we're really getting to give wholly. And so we are being, that's a great gift. It's one of the great gifts of this time of crisis. It really draws out the highest capacity of creativity and also of innovation as well. So what I'm hearing is that we're at a crossroads in terms of healthcare. We have our physical health, we have how we're taking care of our bodies, our understanding of really what prophylactic is, what preventative is. So many things. It's not just a vaccine. It's minerals, it's vitamins, it's exercise, it's, do we even understand what it means to be immunocompromised? Do we understand all the different factors that go into that? And what is our perception of those that are immunocompromised? How do we respond in a way that's compassionate and kind and supportive of life for all beings? And when it comes specifically to the immune system, there's just so much that we've just been scratching the surface in terms of how our medical system is actually operationalized. And we can even see right now, it is a triage wartime system. It was developed, by a nurse, Florence Nightingale, the modern, hospital and the modern medical system. And it was in a time of war, and it's extraordinarily good at doing what it does. But you can even see that even this is like the quintessential emergency. Even now, it's ill-equipped to actually respond to this crisis, because there's so many other things that are embedded with it. But
which makes us look at what we've been doing and seeing how we can do it better.
Exactly.
Which is the story and conversation about health, as
Exactly.
opposed to triage.
Exactly.
They're both real. They're both important.
Exactly. And there's emotional health, and just barely scratching the surface on that. There's mental health, and there's spiritual health, and all those things come together. And these ancient practices have so much to offer about this. And the question now is, how do we operationalize all of this truly? And so how do we have not just a medical system as the hospitals, but how it's tied in with academia? How do we have a system that is not just biased toward one very specific tool in the toolbox, being either a vaccine or the modern conception of a drug, which druga means dried herb from the Latin, but our conception of a drug is something that's been patented, billions of dollars spent in investing in it,
advertising
to
the masses.
And the way the pharmaceutical industry is set up, it's really set up to fail, because they have to constantly be searching for new products in order to stay viable. And so the incentive is inherently about
people
staying their health in terms of monetary health, and not really about the health of the individual to support what is the future, which is personalized and precise medicine, and supporting technologies and innovations that will do that. And so now we're in this crisis, we're all scrambling to pull it together, and we're just, doing our best to muscle up and get it done. But my prayer is that we'll really we'll find a vast new frontier of health, and we'll understand how to truly support the immune system, how to truly individualize and personalize healthcare, and as a personal practice that integrates with a community practice and support, which integrates with a more national, global network that puts forth policies and supports and educational materials that are not captured by industry, that are not influenced by campaigns and dollars, but are truly for the liberation of mankind.
Haribol.
Haribol. And that goes with all disclosure, and that goes with divine duty and our dharma. Each one of us is called now to show up in our capacity, in our best self, no matter where we are. And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of distrust that we've been living in for quite a while now, especially the last 4 years with the whole advent of fake news and the whole advent of, there's just a real polarization and breakdown, and there's battling going on all over the place over just the smallest of ideological points. Mm. And these are all being weaponized, and it all serves to divide us so that we may be conquered by those that seek to control us. And that is maybe the biggest denial that is going on.
Is that nobody wants to.
No one wants to
contemplate that there could possibly be an energetic, psychic, emotional, and physical collective body that would ever want to harm or hurt us. It's very hard to believe because we are humans and we are literally made to connect and love and serve. It's our divine duty. It's our divine right in relationship. Our karma, if you want to get into philosophy, changes that. And there are many practices that speak of this. But what is also spoken of was that this time was coming. And if millions of people knew that this time was coming and could even begin to prepare, that means that there's millions of people who were completely unprepared, but are now being given the opportunity to jump in.
Yeah.
And courage is necessary. So we're showing up, and we are so grateful for all of you being with us every night on Kirtan. We're on Jaishree Yoga right now, but we've been sharing on a personal page, and we hope we offer something with
it's so powerful.
Prayer.
It's so powerful, and even if you're not open to the idea of an actual cabal
or whatever you want to call it, if you want
people that don't have good intentions when they make their plans and implement them, then consider just maybe looking at it this way in terms of empowerment and knowing that you make a difference, that with every action that you take, know that you are connected to the whole of creation. Know that your physical body is simply the grossest, in terms of the densest, vibratorially speaking, manifestation of your presence, of your corporality that you can see, but your energy extends, and this is so scientifically proven, even just the baseline of your heart magnetic field extending beyond your body. And so many other teachings about the actuality of that extending out. So we are affecting and touching each other across the planet, across the stars, even across lifetimes. And so every single thing that we do, just like my experience of being taken over today when we were serving Narayani and trying to, I was trying to fix the situation, but I was in this negative space, that is contributing to a negative overall direction for reality. It might be a minute point, but it's still doing that. And a positive interaction up levels just a little bit. And if we're open to the idea that we are all connected in this way, we know that there are beings that are very, very high, and we know that there are beings that are very, very low and evil. And just by the principle of like attracting like, when we do just a little bit of a negative thing, there's a pull on that, and it creates a little bit of a cord. It might not be a strong cord.
Graha.
It might be a graha, exactly, a pulling, a tugging.
Like the planets, like how astrology is a science that is always working at play.
Exactly.
These energies are real. If you don't want to think of them, then like Kala says, think of yourself as being on that amazing positive. If you're watching this, you're obviously in your Dharma. You're obviously on the ascension path. You wouldn't have found this. And I'd like to just name some of the amazing dharmic duties, or really the Sanatana dharmic duties, the eternal duties of motherhood, fatherhood, parenthood, grandparenthood. If you are with a child right now, you're being what a gift, because they already inherently hold that perfect slate, and without being negatively affected from the outside world or outside forces, they get to be in your zone right now. And that's absolutely amazing. If you're the CEO or a boss or an employer, you have the opportunity to lead right now in a higher consciousness, to hold and make manifest these ideas from a more bedrock idea of business, bartering, trade. You can get creative. And if you have to let people go, you can do it with compassion and express your absolute love and care and be generous. If you are someone who was laid off right now, your duty is to transmute that energy and recognize, wow, I have this free time now to figure out what I really want to do and who I really want to be, and then go study and empower yourself and utilize this to the nth degree. And if you are a person who is in pain or sick or in fear, I know that the first weekend I went through the stages many weekends back, and I went through real fear. And I had to go through that scenario of leaving the planet, leaving my body. I've done that before, but I really did for a second, want to go through that again, that death cycle, because I find it to be healthy in some ways to go through those steps. And then you can move up the platform out of denial, out of fear, to anger, up to, eventually forgiveness, and then completely transformation and going into a higher level of trust that we're all going through this together. And you are part of that by being more positive and sending out that energy. And if you are a light worker on the front lines in the spiritual way, which many of us are, if you've been going through a transmutation of pain, of global awareness, of any kind of crisis, like if you're doing your Harry Pottering and you're saging and you're sending out prayers or doing pujas, and if you're a devotee of any kind and you're calling out in these high vibrations, whatever words of love, whatever thoughts of love, then you're certainly doing your Dharma also. And have faith and have hope. And if you are a frontline worker, like our brother Jordan, who's been working at Whole Foods and making sure the food gets out to people, like that's a real frontline job right now, as well as the nurses and the doctors. If you are called to be on that level, remember the Bhagavad Gita, remember Krishna, and we'll go back to those classes, but doing your Dharma for a higher purpose and recognizing that we're not these bodies anyway, which is pretty high to recognize. But if you can latch on to that energy, it's going to bring you out of despair. If
you can disclose that, not necessarily through your words, but through your presence,
let it be known.
That is a game changer. That's maybe even more important than anything else that's happening right now, is simply allowing that consciousness to show up with that consciousness and that intention in your heart, and just returning to it. It's a remembering practice. It's a remembering practice. So,
anything else from your genius self right now?
That's, I think, it's a great place to end, I think.
Oh, the reason we have the Soul Ascension book up is actually a disclosure in itself. The whole book is a big disclosure and a download, but I actually share the third book I've always been writing is really about children. It's called Narayani. It's very simple. I always knew there were three. And
Narayani Lev, !
Narayani Lev. And but it's really, I tell a story of her birth in the book, and not anything graphic or gory. It's more about what happened in the hospital and the absolute bureaucratic nightmare that could have resulted in the